And for those who enjoy this channel and would love to support us financially, please feel free to hit that donate link. We'd greatly appreciate it. God bless.
We all must realize that it's genetics. It's in our DNA where the question regarding ancestry is answered. Genes, traits, genetics is what's inherited sperm and egg. Sperm and egg don't pass on a fossil or a bone. They don't pass on geography or a rock. They pass on genetics and traits. And so if we want to find out the history of humanity, this is where we must look. We have clocks in our DNA, for example, that go back just 6,000 years to Adam and Eve. Let's discuss some reasons why, based on genetic data, the Bible's account of human history is true. When we focus on the variation, for example, in the Y chromosome in the world today, we see that Y chromosomes have very little variation. This indicates that we came from a common ancestor in the not so distant past. Interestingly, the Y chromosomes are geographically specific. There exists African Y chromosomes, British Y chromosomes, Chinese Y chromosomes. Why is this? This is because mutations have occurred in the lines after Babel, since God divided the nations based on their Y chromosome. The family lines are based on the male ancestry. These nations were divided across the planet. Is there good evidence for limited ancestry? Or does the evidence tell us that humans did not go back to Adam and Eve, but are actually related to apes, dogs, and banana plants? Well, the evidence for the existence of Adam and Eve and limited ancestry is you and me and the genetics of the people in the world today. The genetic structure in humans today speaks to us of a literal Adam and Eve. We have a small DNA compartment called the mitochondrial DNA that we only inherit from our mothers. Everybody on this planet got their mitochondrial DNA from a single woman, who is exactly what we would expect from a biblical Eve. She is quite literally the mother of us all. In a nutshell, we have nearly identical mitochondrial DNA, and the very few mutations that differ from Eve's sequence are exactly what would be expected if Eve arose just several thousands of years ago. As I briefly touched on earlier, the same thing goes for the male side. Science tells us that all men have similar Y chromosomes, which is passed down from their fathers. And all of male humanity traces back to a single man. This single male ancestor of humanity has all the qualities expected if the Bible were true. The main argument offered, though, by the evolutionist community, especially biologos, against a literal Adam and Eve and ultimately limited ancestry has to do with genetic diversity. They will say there exists no real scientific way for two people to generate all the genetic diversity we see in humans today. This main argument is easily refuted and actually reflects a poor understanding of even basic genetics. A man and a woman today could have thousands, even millions of children, and no two children would be 100% identical. This is because they are heterozygous. There exists built-in diversity in millions of sites within the genome of the average person. The best way I can explain it is if God created Adam and Eve to be heterozygous, which in fact would be optimal design, you could have as much human diversity and more than we have today in their first family. Time is not required for the diversity today because diversity can be designed and built into Adam and Eve. This argument is not even scientifically reasonable. One more line of evidence I do want to point out before we go into the discussion has to do with the HapMap data. The HapMap project is what I am referring to, and this very important project was intended to compile a significant fraction of human genetic diversity. They examined millions of variants in thousands of people from around the world and made the data easily available. Dr. Robert Carter puts it perfectly when he states, and I quote, "I am quite happy with what we learned from the project." What have we learned? The human genome is young. Shared blocks of DNA are large, and there has not been enough time to scramble them to randomness. The human population came from a single source. Most blocks are shared among all world populations. The human genome is falling apart. Deletions tend to not be shared among populations, but are unique to subpopulations. This is further evidence for the youth of the genome and that we came from a single source population in the recent past.
For all those who appreciate the work that we're doing here on Standing for Truth, please hit that subscribe button. because we are just getting started.